Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Mindful Muscle Podcast with my fabulous co-host Jodi. How you doing after a week off?
I'm great. If you're new here, welcome. Gio and I are two friends who went on our own health and wellness journeys and have collectively lost and maintained a 145-pound weight loss. But more importantly, we've gained strength, confidence, muscles, and a better relationship with our health. We're here to show others, especially those just starting out, that sustainable change is possible and you are absolutely worth the effort. So be sure to hit like and subscribe to Mindful Muscle today.
Yes, yes. And today we have a cool episode that Jodi has brought up. The fact that we're going to be discussing myths that perhaps her and I believed in the past, or perhaps myths that we have heard that have since been busted. Jodi, what gave you the idea to come up with this topic today? Good one, by the way.
Thank you. I feel like I'm seeing a lot of posts and I'm like, wow, people still believe that. I remember hearing that back in the day. Like, where does this come from? And then I thought back to all the things I used to believe and how that was far from accurate. So, figured we both have, between the two of us, we both heard some good ones.
Yes, no doubt. So start us off. Which is the first myth you want to bring up that we can discuss?
All right, you ready for this one?
Go ahead.
I used to believe that if it was organic, if it was anything from Trader Joe's, or
Hmm.
if it is labeled quote unquote healthy, that it's lower in calorie and the amount that you consume doesn't really matter as much as long as it's organic Trader Joe's or healthy.
Yeah, I can see that. I can see that. A lot of people, it's funny because I saw a video many years ago of how these companies, they're genius marketers and they put
Mhm.
different labels on things that make you believe it's healthy, but in reality, they're just using buzzwords that hide the
Mhm.
fact that it's not healthy. For example, in my world, many people know I'm 100% plant based. You get these fake ice cream sandwiches and, these things that look like ice cream sandwiches. And then you realize it never says ice cream on it. It says something else. And even in those who are made out of dairy, it doesn't actually say ice cream because it's not really ice cream. It's some other conglomerate. And so different things you see, you begin to realize, wait a minute. I enjoy it. It kind of gives me the idea of ice cream, but it's definitely not ice cream.
I know there's this one Instagram account, I think it's cheat meal by day or something like that, and
Hmm.
he likes to take known brands of food, and he likes to relabel it, redesign the label to make something like Cheetos look
Hmm.
like a health food, and it, like,
Yeah.
boggles your mind. Like, the ingredients aren't changing, but they can really convince you that it's something that it really isn't.
I wish Cheetos were a health food because I used to love Cheetos. And I'm an idiot because, I've been plant based for a long time. I always thought it was just like fake flavoring. Then I found out it's
Mhm.
actually milk and actual cheese. No wonder it tasted so good. But those things are so caloric. Another thing, staying on this topic that I've noticed is you look at the ingredient label or where it says the calories and they
Mhm.
put it like in bold print the calories, right? And you think, okay, that's not bad. But then in the smaller print is per serving, and there are like 4 servings in the bag. So then you
Mhm.
get tricked into eating 4 servings of something you thought was only 160 calories, and now you're over 500 calories in a small snack.
Yep. I mean, how many times, like, have I seen, like, something the size of a crumble cookie, and you look at the calories, be like, "That's not bad." Then you find out it's a
Mm,
portion of the cookie. Who do
yeah,
you know is eating a portion of a
I
cookie
know. A third
in
of a
a
cookie.
sitting?
Something in for my meat eating friends that I didn't realize that some of them didn't realize, where it says grass fed cattle or grass fed or free range animals. a lot of times that's not really the name makes you think they grew up eating grass out of no, that just means like they get to go outside for like an hour or something. Yes, something to that effect. I don't know if that's the exact details, but they're not spending the
Mhm.
whole time outdoors and stuff. Or it's only for a certain portion, and then when they mature, they keep them in a factory. So it's just little
Yeah,
things like that that people have to understand that it's a marketing world out there, and we're just living in it.
absolutely. The next 2, I'm gonna combine them, that
Mhm.
carbs make you fat and
Mhm.
fats make you fat.
Yes, I have to admit I used to believe the fat makes you fat.
Yep.
One a long time ago.
And reality, it's not any particular macro or ingredient, it's the amount of calories you consume. Now, something high in carbs or fats, depending on what it might taste extremely good and it might be high caloric where, you're not going to get full and it's very easy to overdo it, but carbs as a whole and fats as a whole are not going to make you fat. Complex carbs are vital for energy, and depending on the fats, it's essential for hormone health and brain function. So,
Mhm.
it's not like one macro is bad and one macro is good. No, they have their place. It all depends on what it is. And the dosage makes the poison, of course.
Yeah. And for those who probably listening to what Jody says and think, "Oh, good, I can eat potato chips all day." No, you still have to worry about quality, but not
Mhm.
necessarily about fats in the macro or carbs in the macro or protein in the macro is bad. No, you can eat as whatever combination you want. However, make it complex carbs. Make it, if you're a meat eater, healthy, lean protein. If you're plant based, make sure, you're getting healthy. um, Doses or enough protein and stuff like that. I love avocados, and there was a year, a period where I used to think, well, that's a lot of fat, and I used to like skimp
Mhm.
on the almonds, and because 1 ounce of almonds has 14 grams of fat, and no, if it's healthy fats, like you don't want to be chugging olive oil,
Mhm.
but even that, it's not going to be satisfying.
Right.
Chugging olive oil. But you can eat as much avocados as you want as long as you keep it under your caloric or almonds or any kind of nuts. What are your favorite nuts?
Cashews.
Oh, cashews. Okay. Mine are almond, number one, and then pistachios. I get them from
Ooh, I do
Costco.
like pistachios. They're up
Yeah.
there too.
The only thing I don't like about the reason I prefer the almonds is because they're higher in protein than the pistachios.
Ah.
But not by much, but any little bit counts.
Well, you mentioned that you were leery about eating avocado. When I was on Weight Watchers, it was the
Hmm.
same thing because at the time, avocado had so many points. So I would go out of my way to avoid them. And once I switched to calorie tracking and
Hmm.
started eating avocado and guac, I forgot how much I loved eating it. And
Yes.
it felt like a cheat because for so many years I thought I couldn't eat that. Same
Forbidden
with
food.
potatoes.
Hmm.
Potatoes is a huge one. Like, potatoes is more satisfying than rice. I would rather
Hmm.
have a bowl with potatoes and other protein
Hmm.
ingredients than have it over rice, but man, I wasted a lot of time fearing potatoes because it's a carb. It's bad.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
no, 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 no. Eat your potatoes. It's good for you.
Yes. I mean, you'd get along great with my wife because, I mean, her DNA is like 100% Irish, British Irish. And her and my girls eat potatoes like they're going out of style. I have them every once in a while. And not because I don't like them, just, I don't know, I prefer other things. But they eat potatoes like bags of it per week. So explain to people, right? Why do people have fear of carbs, and why shouldn't we be afraid of carbs?
I think we have a fear of carbs just from all the noise we heard back in the day. Like, I've heard about carbs being bad back in the 80s and 90s,
Mm-hmm.
and it seemed like they deemed all carbs were bad, and you
Mm-hmm.
still hear that depending on what
Yes.
diet fad somebody's following, they still might think that carbs are bad, but there are complex carbs and there are simple carbs, and, there are vegetables that have carbs. Are you
Mm-hmm.
really telling me that those are bad for you? I
Mm-hmm.
mean,
Yes.
they give you energy, and I remember another thing I noticed when I switched from Weight Watchers to calorie counting, that my energy level increased because I didn't know that I was eating too little carb on Weight
Mm-hmm.
Watchers, and with my training schedule, I was tired all the time, and it was crazy. After 1 week of that switch, I noticed a vast improvement in my energy levels.
Yes. And speaking of, carbs being, bad. Some people say carbs are bad. Well, it depends. Once again, right? If you're eating potato chips all day, that's not going to be satisfying. It's not nutrient dense. It's carbs, but it's not really good for you long term. However, beans. A lot of people underestimate how high in carbs beans are. And if you
Mhm.
need, energy for a good workout, crack open a. I like eating a can of, no salted black beans. I put a little seasoning on it. I can eat that as a quick 230 calorie snack. Gets me some protein, gets me a lot of carbs, definitely gets me the fiber, and I'm good to go. And so carbs
Mhm.
are good. It depends which carbs. But if you mix, some whole grain brown rice, you get some black beans, you get some vegetables, that's a lot of carb. And then you throw in your protein. Carb is needed for energy. As a matter of fact, I just saw a
Mhm.
video this morning on Instagram, short, where a guy was talking about if you want to lose weight, somebody was reacting to another video. If you want to lose weight, eat what I'm eating. And it was like 4 eggs and like ground beef, like zero, basically zero carbs. And the guy who was reacting to the video was like, yeah, you'll lose a lot of weight, but because you're depleting your carbs that are stored in your muscles. It's not sustainable long term. You gotta be
Yeah.
balanced. Now, it doesn't mean you need to eat 90% carbs, right? You need your protein and your fats, but I try to get as much carbs as my protein needs allowed.
Yeah. Well, you brought up a good point, fiber. We talk about fiber all the time on this
Hmm.
show, and I'm sure a lot of our listeners have heard it elsewhere, the importance of fiber. Fiber is a type of carb. That is the
Hmm.
macro category that it's under. So
Hmm.
there are so many health benefits to eating adequate fiber. It lowers your risk of certain types of cancer, lowers your risk of cardiovascular disease, so on
Hmm.
and so forth. And it's a type of carb. So you can eat carbs, you will be fine. Now, why are they called carbohydrates? Well,
Hmm.
you because you tend to retain a little bit of water. So if you wind up eating a lot of carbs late at night,
Hmm.
you might see a gain on the scale. That's not necessarily body fat. It just might be you're retaining water at the moment. And it's not the same as gaining body fat overnight.
You mentioned that. I've been to a couple of, or I've spoken to a couple of bodybuilders, and I went to a friend, a mutual Facebook friend that we have, her show. And they do a lot of cutting and they do a lot of like water, uh,
Mhm.
cutting just so they could look ripped the day of the show. But actually, the day of the show, they eat a lot of carbs so the muscles can look full. And so that's where you're getting that water retention. And with creatine too, you tend to hold in a little water, but that's good. Your body needs water in its muscles
Mhm.
to function properly, to be hydrated. And so carbs are good for you. You can lose weight on carbs. You can lose and be healthy on carbs. You just got to be eating beans, vegetables, edamame pasta as opposed to potato chips, pizza, donuts. Both labeled carbs, but The long-term
Yeah.
effects of either one are going to be different.
Yeah. I mean, and I do enjoy those foods on occasion, like potato
Mm-hmm.
chips, but I also know that if most of my day is full of those types of food, I am gonna be hungry, and I'm more likely to overeat and eat in a calorie surplus, which is going to take me away from my goals if I keep eating like that. So,
Mm-hmm.
the dosage makes the poison, but, if you want to be satisfied and not hungry constantly, be choosy of what kind of carbs you're eating.
Yes. So get those beans with the fiber, keep you satisfied. Get the fats, keep you satisfied, and obviously the protein. Here's a myth I want to bring up that now I just thought of that I used to believe back in the day. And for my kind of brain, it's actually good that it wasn't true. That you need to switch up your workout routine like very often. And it turns
Mhm.
out to be a myth. You could be doing the same thing as long as you're making progress. You can do like one of my favorite exercises is the tricep rope pull down.
Mhm.
I love that. And as long as you're making progress and you don't have to switch it up to skull crunchers or overhead or anything, just keep
Mhm.
doing what works. Now, if you get bored, that's sufficient to change it up if you want to, but you don't have to, is the point. People are always
Mhm.
talking about confusing your muscles and all this. Well, hey, muscle ain't got no brain. Just work it hard, push it, close to failure, and you can do the. So it's good for me because even though we have Fitbot and I love it, I could just stick to my routine and just work out hard, knowing that I know what workout is coming
Mhm.
up ahead. So myth that you have to constantly change things to quote unquote grow is busted.
Yep. Well, speaking of our muscles not having a brain, here's another body part that people give it a little bit too much credit. Eating after 7 p.m. leads to
Mm,
fat gain. And I that was one of the myths that I thought people stopped believing a long time ago, and I saw it
mhm,
recently in a forum. Somebody said, "Well, if you're tired, well, then I feel like your metabolism will be tired." Okay,
mm,
science isn't based off of your feeling.
yes.
It doesn't work like that. It doesn't have a clock. It
Mhm,
doesn't get tuckered out and where things automatically switch over the fat gain if it's 7:01 PM. That's a
mhm,
little nutty, but I used to hear that for a
mhm.
long time that you shouldn't eat after 7 PM.
Yeah, to me. Uh, well, let me see what you think about this. I agree. You're not going to gain more weight if you eat after 7 p.m. as far as if you keep your calories in check, right? If you're under
Mhm.
your total calories, eat at midnight for all I care. You know what I mean? However, I do think though I prefer not to eat that late for other reasons though. I think sometimes it
Mhm.
affects my sleep to be that full late. Because I tend to go to bed. Well, I mean, who am I talking to? You go to bed earlier than I do. I tend to go to bed around 9:30. So if I eat past 7 p.m., I feel like I'm too full to fully rest. But
Right.
Jody is right. That has nothing to do with weight gain or weight loss per se. Um, just stay under your total calories. You can eat all your 2,000 calories at 7 p.m. And if that's below your threshold, so be it.
Mhm.
Hmm.
Because I would hate too if somebody was like, "Oh my goodness, I forgot to eat dinner and it's 8 PM," and then they're hungry and not eating, and they wind up over restricting. Well,
Hmm.
you're just increasing your chances of having a binge episode where you get ravenous and
Hmm.
you wind up eating more calories than, you would have if you would have just ate a little something after
And the
7
opposite
PM
is
without that fear.
true too. If you undereat too much, you're not going to sleep well either,
Mhm.
right? You're going to be kind of
Absolutely.
hungry as well. So now that being said, if you do eat late, the scale may be higher in the morning, but not because you gain fat, just because your body probably hasn't, finished digesting it all that late. Your
Mhm.
body takes time. So I notice when I go to bed around not bad. When I eat, when I'm done eating by 6 p.m., around 6 p.m., 6:30, I notice that my scale fluctuation is minimal. But if I do have a late meal, like 8, 9 p.m., I know before it used to scare me, but now I know I'm going to be up a pound or two in the morning. But it has
Mhm.
nothing to do with that I gained the fat. It's just things take time to go through the large intestine and the small intestine.
Yeah, but you just reminded me of something else that is
Hmm.
vital to talk about, that you and I now are so used to weight fluctuations, and we're at a
Hmm.
point where we can kinda anticipate before we step
Yeah.
on the scale when it's gonna
Hmm.
happen. But I used to think that if you didn't see progress on the scale, either there was a fluctuation up or you didn't see any change, that you're
Hmm.
clearly screwing something up and you might as well give up. It is so ridiculously common for fluctuations. Now, you have to be honest with yourself. If you aren't
Hmm.
weighing your food and, your tablespoon of peanut butter is actually 5 tablespoons of peanut butter, well, then that's what's going on. But a heavy leg day, if you had too much sodium too close to bedtime or too many carbs,
Hmm.
there's a variety of reasons, and it's normal. It does not mean you're doing anything wrong. You have to keep in mind that scale is not just measuring body fat, it is measuring your bones, your muscles, your water
Hmm.
retention, anything in your digestive tract. Now, I know somebody will be like, well, my scale can tell me my body fat percentage. No, it can't.
No,
No,
not
no, it can't.
no.
None of them are accurate.
Yes. Yeah, yeah. Going along with that, I notice too when I have a real strenuous day, and I'm not talking about like my regular workout routine and my regular steps routine. Like a couple of weeks ago, I played full court basketball for like an hour and 30 minutes. And my average heart rate was about 145 tracked, by my watch. And when I do things like that are out of the ordinary, I hadn't played full court basketball in a couple of years. There's going to be some water retention in your body, some inflammation from, doing things you haven't done on a regular basis. So the next day, the scale's going to be up again. But it has nothing to do with, I gained weight. No, it's just water retention, inflammation. So that was on Sunday. By Tuesday, I was back to my regular weight. And I had only gone up like 1.8 pounds. But I knew it wasn't from food because I just basically ate my regular diet the day before. But things like that. On this past Sunday, we went to an indoor water park here in Oklahoma. With it was a church event. We had 51 people go, and it has huge wave pool. It has a pool with sand like a beach. It's a cool picture. My wife, the kids made her buried her in the sand into a mermaid tail, and but once again, all that going down slides and jumping in slides and pools and all that. And the next day, I was heavier. Once again, I didn't overeat. It's just normal things, and yet people, like you say, tend to at the beginning tend to freak out, for lack of a better word.
Absolutely. We have to really be mindful of other things going on. We have to be mindful of what was going on.
Mhm.
Focus on your progress goals and seriously write down any non-scale victories. It could be
Mhm.
like, my clothes feel better, or I noticed I had more energy, or I lifted heavier today. Those are big wins. So
Mhm.
that is what you should focus more than, oh no, the scale went up
Mhm.
and I'm failing. No, keep that list of wins to help keep you going, keep you motivated. Yeah, you have to be disciplined, but if you feel like it's not working, you still need that emphasis, that proof that, I'm doing better than I'm giving myself credit.
Mhm. And along those lines, when it comes to the scale, don't take any daily fluctuation. Look at trends. Minimum a weekly trend. If not, take it a
Mhm.
month. If the scale gives you anxiety, look at your trends month to month. I weigh
Mhm.
myself every day just because I'm a stat geek and I like it. And maybe I shouldn't say this, but sometimes you go to the bathroom, then you weigh less.
Yep.
And so, if you get anxiety from being on daily, don't look at it, cover it. Weigh yourself daily, but then look at the weekly trends or the monthly trends and go from there. But you can't make progress on something you don't track. And you don't have to necessarily track your macros every day, but something needs to let you know you're making progress either way. And
Yep.
by the time you wait for the belt to give you the progress, it might be too late. You may have packed on too many pounds. You know what I mean? Or,
Mhm.
or, or the opposite. You may be losing too rapidly, which would cause muscle loss and not just fat loss. Speaking of which, here's a myth that I used to believe, and we talk about it: the thin is healthy, the
Mhm.
skinny is healthy. And since that myth has been busted, um, I see a lot of people, like I'm more cognizant now, especially with the fact that my wife's a doctor, that there are a lot of people who are skinny looking who have issues, like big
Mhm.
issues. And there's a guy I know who is thin, but when you look at him, you can tell he has uh, man boobs, I guess. Like how some
Mhm.
heavier weight people get, but he's getting it skinny, which I'm thinking to myself, you either a bad diet or you're like really skinny fat, where he looks thin, but he's so much percent body fat that it's starting to show up like he can use a bra.
A friend of mine used to call man boobs McGuffies. I don't know why she called them McGuffies, but that was her coin
I have
term.
no idea. Should I don't even know if I want to look that up.
Probably not. But, like, also, somebody recently posted that they hit their goal weight, and now they kinda feel defeated, like,
Hmm.
"What now? This is just the way I
Yeah.
look." And I recently hit my goal weight. I'm currently at my goal weight, and when I finally hit that, it was very underwhelming.
Hmm.
It's more exciting to me now to see the weight on my bar go up, or
Hmm.
when I hit my next fitness goal, that's going to make me feel better than knowing that I hit that goal weight. So,
Hmm.
definitely make that list of the things that you can do now that you couldn't before. Like, I still take pride that I used to get winded walking up a hill, and I won that competition at the gym last
Yeah.
year, and I just started paying for my gym membership again
Hmm. Hmm.
this month because that was such an amazing
Hmm.
award to get, like,
Yeah.
prize, free gym membership for a year, and it's amazing. You have to celebrate those wins and write them down because you don't wanna forget in those moments where you're feeling doubt that it's worth keep going on and moving forward. No, look at those wins and keep going.
Yeah, a win that I had, one of my earliest wins that were non-scale victories early on when I first started working out. I remember buying like a chest of drawers for my mom, and I remember taking it up to her second floor, and I remember how heavy that thing was because it was solid wood, and I'm thinking to myself,
Mhm.
man, this is heavy. I hope I don't hurt my back. Then years later, we sell it and we have to take it back downstairs. And I'm in my head, I'm thinking, man, I remember how heavy this was. Well, I start taking it downstairs and it's like, this ain't heavy. And like I felt weird. Like, am I remembering this correctly? But then it dawned on me. I was that much stronger. It was 3 years later. I was that much stronger. And what felt like a chore taking up was a breeze taking down. And that was so satisfying because you can't always necessarily tell how it is going to affect you in the real world, right? But look at you in
Mhm.
your situation with your husband in the accident. You've had to physically help him, and you're more capable
Mhm.
now than you were when you first started. And that is a victory that's been very satisfying.
Yeah. Life is going to have those moments, and it's nice to know that, we're ready no matter what. I mean, of course, it's always gonna depend on what's thrown our way, but we can
Hmm.
handle it better than we could in our before bodies, in our
Hmm.
before lack of strength.
Yeah, and not, and more importantly, I think as we wrap this episode up, is mentally, we are so much
Mhm.
more. Uh, I think the biggest gains we've made is mental. The fact that
Oh, yeah.
the discipline you and I have, the discipline not only to constantly work out, but to constantly stay within our macros, to understand that one day of indulgence, either at a birthday or at holidays, is not going to throw you off the rail. You're not a loser because you
Mhm.
enjoyed one day. And that even if, heaven forbid, we gain 5 pounds, we know what it takes to lose them correctly.
Mhm.
Because as many know, my biggest, I don't want to say mistake, but at the beginning when I was losing weight just doing cardio, I didn't like how it was looking. It was looking flabby. It was once I got started weight training, I started liking the way I was losing the weight. And so now I know, even if I gave 5 pounds, 8 pounds, get back on the saddle and pump that iron.
Absolutely.
Any last myth you have before we wrap this up?
I have one more under the category of nutrition. I figured we only tackled one fitness one.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe next time we'll do mostly fitness centric. And of course, if any listeners have any nutrition myths that we might have missed, or maybe
Mm-hmm.
a burning fitness one they have in mind, be sure to comment and maybe we'll cover it on the next episode. But gluten is bad for everyone, even if you do not have celiac disease or intolerance.
Yeah. It's funny you mentioned that because, my wife has celiac disease. So for her, it definitely is bad.
Mhm.
But she has the disease. And my middle daughter is gluten sensitive. So when she has too much gluten, she gets eczema in her hands. But for me, I don't know. I can't eat gluten free pizza crust. I just can't do it. I mean, I can, but I like real bread pizza crust. I love
Mhm.
bread. Nothing like a nice warm garlic bread dipped in some, when you go to restaurants where they have the olive oil with the roasted garlic in it
Mhm.
and you just dip it. That stuff is good. But if you don't have gluten sensitivity, eat away. Well, not eat away. Eat everything in moderation, but you can enjoy your gluten bread.
I think it gets lumped into the first myth I talked about, where again, we're talking about those who do not have a celiac disease or intolerance, but
Mm-hmm.
I think people hear gluten-free and automatically think the way I did about organic or Trader Joe's or healthy,
Yeah.
that it was automatically lower in calorie and somehow
Mm-hmm.
better for you from a diet perspective, and it isn't lower in calories necessarily, and
It's actually higher a lot of time
yeah.
and less nutritious. Like it's hard to make quality gluten-free bread, and that's why my wife sometimes she goes weeks without eating any kind of bread just because they're smaller, more calories, and less nutritious. It's almost like they're just giving you a bleached cardboard box. So yeah. Okay, Jody. Thanks for the topic. Any last updates on your husband and his recovery?
We're hoping that he gets his pins out tomorrow. We are going to district court in our area on the 15th of August
Mm-hmm.
against the driver. Um, I'm not sure what's going to happen with that, and my husband kind of feels weird that he has to be there because,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was like 1 o'clock in the morning. All he saw was headlights going the wrong way that day. But,
Mm-hmm.
you know, in the end, we both hope and pray that this was rock bottom for this person and that this was the wake up call they need, because 23 is way too young to spend a good chunk of your life in jail, and
Hmm.
I hope he turns his life around.
Yeah, and living with the regret that he could have potentially killed someone, and
Mhm.
you don't want that weighing on you. The fact that he has to go to jail. But look, people can be redeemed, and I'm very I respect the fact that you can still wish well for him despite what happened to your family and the heartache and hardship it's cost you guys. But we're rooting for you guys, and you guys will
Thank
come
you.
out on top.
Thank
All right.
you.
Until next time on the Mindful Muscle Podcast, be blessed.